The Level 3 security alert blared through the crystal corridors of Nexus Station for the first time in 17 galactic cycles. Observer Kalen paused mid-patrol, his 42 compound eyes focusing simultaneously on different angles of the main hallway. Every facet of his vision registered data with absolute precision. Air temperature elevated by 0.3 degrees, anomalous structural vibration in Sector 12, irregular movement patterns near the diplomatic chamber. As a first-class security attaché for the Galactic Confederation, Kalen had been genetically enhanced to observe what others missed. His species, the Vekhari, had evolved on a world of camouflaged predators and invisible venoms. Survival demanded absolute attention. Now 2 million beings and 400 different species depended on that same attention within the largest space station ever constructed. He accelerated towards Sector 12, his 6 articulated legs moving in perfect sync across the polished floor. Rounding the corner, he found the source of the alert. A group of Cathorian diplomats blocking the corridor. Their red scales gleamed under the artificial lights, and each carried plasma rifles attached to combat exoskeletons, standard protocol for a warrior species. But what seized Kalen's attention wasn't the Cathorians. It was what was on the other side of the corridor. 2 humans, just 2, wearing dark blue dress uniforms, no armor, no visible weapons. The first was tall, close-cropped grey hair, standing ramrod straight. The second, a woman with dark skin and vigilant eyes, kept her hands relaxed at her sides. No defensive gear, no rifles, no personal force fields. Kalen accessed the database with a thought. Identification confirmed. Terran diplomatic security guards escorting Ambassador Sarah Chen for trade treaty negotiations with the Cathorians. Impossible. The Cathorians had 10 elite soldiers, each capable of punching through titanium plating at 100 meters. The humans had 2 unarmed guards protecting one of their species' most important negotiators. Kalen watched as the groups passed each other in the corridor. The Cathorians instinctively adjusted their rifles, muscles tense beneath their scales. The human guards didn't react. They simply kept walking, flanking the ambassador with measured, tranquil steps. But something was wrong. Kalen noticed it. The Cathorians looked away first. Warriors born and bred for combat, genetically modified not to feel fear, subtly shifted their gaze as the humans passed. It wasn't hostility. It was something far more primal. Instinctive deference. For the next 12 hours, Kalen couldn't stop thinking about what he saw. He accessed the station's historical logs, searching for patterns. The information he found only deepened the mystery. In 200 years of human presence on the galactic stage, there had been 347 attacks on diplomats of various species at Nexus Station. Political assassinations, kidnappings for ransom, acts of terrorism. The galaxy was vast, but violence was universal. Successfully attacked humans, 0. Attempts against humans, 42. Success rate, 0.0%. Kalen deepened the search. The details of the failed attempts were even more disturbing. A Zixtari assassin found dead in his own chamber 3 hours before the plant hit, cause of death unknown. A Felkari terrorist group that invaded a human delegation released all hostages after 20 minutes, refusing to explain why. Witnesses said the terrorists looked terrified. How was this possible? Humans were physically mediocre by all galactic standards. No natural claws, no venom. No accelerated cellular regeneration, no chitinous exoskeletons, no multispectrum vision. They were bipedal primates from a standard Class M planet, whose only evolutionary advantage seemed to be absurd stamina and the ability to sweat. And yet, they held 3 seats on the High Galactic Council. Yet, their delegations walked around unarmed. Kalen decided to seek direct answers. He requested an audience with Elder Tavara, the oldest representative of his species on the station. Tavara had served on the Galactic Council before humans even discovered warp drive technology. If anyone knew the secrets, it was her. Tavara's chamber was on the deepest level of the station, where artificial gravity was adjusted for high-density species. Kalen had to activate his internal compensators to avoid being crushed. The Elder was suspended in a tank of synthetic amniotic fluid, her compound eyes opaque with age, but her mind still sharp as a quantum blade. "Observer Kalen," her voice reverberated through the universal translator, "you have come to ask about the humans." It wasn't a question. "How did you know, Elder?" "Because all young observers eventually ask. You notice the Terran guards carry no weapons." "Yes. It violates all logical security protocols. Even the most peaceful species use non-lethal sonic weapons. The humans bring nothing." Tavara was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, there was something in her voice Kalen had never heard from a Vekhari Elder before. Fear. "There are things not in the public records, young observer. Files only the 12 founders can access, but I will tell you what I can. The human guards carry no weapons, because weapons would be an insult." "An insult to whom?" "To their function. You think you are observing diplomats protected by guards. You are wrong. You are observing guards tolerating being near diplomats. Every single one of those unarmed humans you see in delegations has undergone training that would turn most warrior species into psychological wrecks. They are not soldiers. They are living containment systems." Kalen felt his alarm glands release instinctive pheromones. Containment of what? Of themselves, the humans you see in the corridors, smiling, cracking jokes, negotiating trade treaties. That is the civilized mask they choose to wear. But beneath it, observer, there is something they themselves try to forget. Something that took them from savanna primates to masters of 57 star systems in just 3 centuries. And what is that? Pure violence, creativity applied to destruction, the capacity to look at any situation, no matter how peaceful, and immediately see 12 ways to turn it into a tactical advantage. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. They chased their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then, they developed tools. Then, weapons. Then, bombs capable of sterilizing entire planets, all while still living on a single world. Kalen processed the information. It made no evolutionary sense. Then why don't we see this violence? Because they choose not to use it. That is the most terrifying part, observer. It is not that humans cannot be violent. It is that they can easily and choose not to be every day. Every diplomatic interaction is a conscious choice to contain something most species release without thought. The guards don't need weapons because they are the weapon. And keeping them unarmed is a constant reminder. If we reach the point where they need to act, we have already failed as a galactic society. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Tavara continued, her voice low. "There is a file, Kalen, ultra-classified, called The Terran Contingency Protocol. Only 3 words in the executive summary. Do not engage, ever. If you value your life and the stability of this station, do not investigate further. Accept the paradox and move on. But Kalen was an observer. Accepting unresolved mysteries went against his fundamental nature. 3 days later, he hacked the file. Nexus Station's security system was considered impenetrable. 7th-generation quantum firewalls. Adaptive encryption based on quantum vacuum fluctuations. Intrusion detection through neural pattern analysis. For most species, it would be impossible. But the Vicari did not think like most species. Kalen didn't breach the system. He simply observed until he understood the pattern. For 48 hours, he monitored the data streams, the maintenance routines, the moments where the security AI's attention was divided between 1,000 simultaneous tasks. Then, in a 3-nanosecond window, he inserted a legitimate query disguised as an administrative routine. The file appeared in his neural interface, Terran Contingency Protocol, Omega Black, classification, drafted by the 12 founding species of the Galactic Confederation in conjunction with the Terran High Command. Approved unanimously, never revoked. Kalen opened the document. The first lines made his alarm glands fire. Warning. This protocol exists to prevent mass extinction. Any violation will result in irreversible consequences. Do not provoke, do not attack, do not threaten Terran citizens under any circumstance that could be interpreted as attempted genocide. Pages of tactical analysis, war simulations, and mathematical projections followed, but it was Annex 7 that made Kalen's blood run cold in his veins. Title: The Prometheus System, Guarantee of Mutual Destruction. The document explained with brutal clarity, when humans reached the stars, they brought with them the memory of thousands of years of wars among themselves. Wars that nearly extinguished them multiple times. When they encountered alien civilizations with superior technology, they faced an existential question: how to ensure a young, vulnerable species would not simply be eliminated by more advanced competitors. The answer was the Prometheus Protocol. Kalen read with growing horror. Humans had built a network of quantum weapons satellites distributed in random orbits across 312 star systems. Each satellite contained antimatter warheads capable of collapsing stars into black holes. The targets were predefined: capital worlds, trade stations, communication nexuses, every critical point of every major civilization in the galaxy. But the truly terrifying part wasn't the existence of the weapons, it was the automatic trigger. The system was connected to biometric sensors across all human colonies. If Terran civilian casualties exceeded 32% of the population in any 72-hour period due to confirmed alien action, the Prometheus Protocol would activate automatically, without human intervention, without possibility of cancellation. The document continued. The Prometheus Protocol is not a system of revenge. It is a safety failure. If humanity is exterminated, the galaxy that allowed or caused that extinction will not deserve to survive. This is not an act of malice, but a logical equation. Death for death. Void for void. Kalen felt nausea, a rare occurrence for his species. This explained everything: the unarmed guards, the instinctive deference of the warrior species, the zero rate of successful attacks. They didn't attack humans because everyone knew on some classified level that humanity held a dead man's switch pointed at the heart of galactic civilization. He continued reading. There were incident reports, attempts to disable the system that failed. A species called the Vorkath tried to hack the satellite network 80 years ago. The satellites self-replicated and changed position. A mass assassination attempt against human colonists on a frontier world resulted in a critical level alarm. The countdown began. It stopped 97 hours before hitting the threshold. The report observed coldly, the perpetrators were handed over by the Vorkath authorities themselves within 40 minutes. Terran retaliation was not required. The implied threat was sufficient. Kalen closed the file, his mind processing the implications. Humans were not admired because they were strong. They were feared because they were willing to drag everyone into the abyss if pushed too far. But something still didn't make sense. If this was the secret, why were humans still accepted on the council? Why weren't they isolated, expelled, openly feared? The answer came 3 days later, during a peace summit. Planet Neutral 7 orbited a binary star on the edge of known space. No political affiliation, no strategic resources, perfect for delicate negotiations. Kalen was there as an official observer, ensuring diplomatic protocols were followed. The human delegation arrived in an inconspicuous ship. Ambassador Chen descended the ramp, followed by the same. 2 guards Kalen had seen on the station. No weapons, impeccable uniforms, neutral expressions. On the opposite side of the landing plaza, the Cathorian delegation waited. 10 elite warriors, full exoskeletons, plasma rifles charged. Commander Vecnar led the group, his crimson scales gleaming under the twin suns. Negotiations began normally. Trade terms, non-aggression pacts, discussions about shared technology. Then everything fell apart in 5 seconds. 3 Cathorians not on the official manifest emerged from the shadows of an adjacent building. Heavy weaponry. They weren't diplomats, they were assassins. Kalen saw everything in excruciating detail. The first attacker raised an electromagnetic pulse rifle. The second activated plasma blades. The third carried something sensors identified as a thermal explosive. The human guards moved. Kalen had seen combat before. Vekhari ritual fights, Cathorian honor duels, coordinated assaults by special forces from a dozen different species. Nothing prepared him for what he witnessed. There was no hesitation, no discussion. The guards simply transformed from diplomatic statues into something else entirely. Commander John Miller, the grey-haired man, covered the distance to the first attacker in a second and a half. His movements were fluid, precise, impossible for something with that apparent muscle structure. Kalen saw the guard deflect the rifle, grab the attacker's arm, and apply a joint lock that snapped the articulation with an audible crack. The rifle fell. The guard snatched the weapon mid-air and disassembled it into 3 pieces while moving toward the second attacker. The female guard was already dealing with the other 2. She blocked the plasma blade with her forearm, protected by something that hadn't been visible before. A microscopic force field that only activated upon impact. Then, with a movement Kalen could barely track, she spun beneath the attacker's guard and applied a precise strike to the base of the skull. The third attacker dropped the explosive and ran. He didn't make it 3 steps. 2 other human guards emerged from positions Kalen hadn't even known existed. They had been there the whole time, invisible, waiting. In less than 5 seconds, 3 elite Cathorian assassins were neutralized, 2 unconscious. one with a broken arm and an expression of absolute shock. No shots fired, no lethal weapons used, just brutal efficiency. But what happened next was even more revealing. Commander Vecna did not order retaliation. He did not accuse the humans of aggression. Instead, he knelt. A Cathorian warrior, genetically incapable of feeling combat fear, knelt before Ambassador Chen. Forgiveness. They did not speak for our species. They will be judged under our severest laws. We do not want conflict with Terra. Chen looked at him with a neutral expression. Accepted. But this cannot happen again, Commander. It will not. I guarantee it with my life. Kalen understood then. Vecna didn't fear the guards. He feared what the guards prevented from happening. The call came 16 hours after the Neutral 7 incident. It wasn't a request, it was a summons. Observer Kalen, report to the Terran section of Nexus Station. Conference, room, Delta 9, alone. The voice was human, female, carrying that particular accent, universal. Translators struggled to process correctly. Kalen checked the identifier. Director Maria Santos, Terran Strategic Intelligence. He knew what this meant. They knew he had accessed the Prometheus Protocol. The Terran section occupied a rotating segment of the station, adjusted to 1.0 G Earth gravity. For Kalen, it was uncomfortable, but manageable. The walls were minimally decorated, blue-gray, soft lighting, a few plants that seemed absurdly fragile for a space environment. Director Santos waited for him alone in the conference room. She was a middle-aged woman by human standards. Black hair pulled back in a bun, dark eyes that didn't blink often enough. She wore a formal black suit with no visible military insignia. Observer Kalen, sit down. It was not a request. He took the chair adapted for his physiology. His compound eyes studied every detail of the room. 2 exits, no visible security devices. But that meant nothing. Humans were masters at concealing their defenses. You accessed classified files 72 hours ago, Santos said, without preamble. The Terran Contingency Protocol. I would like to know why. Kalen considered lying. He discarded the option immediately. If she was here, she already knew the truth. Professional curiosity. I observed a statistical anomaly. Terran guards operating without visible weaponry, 0 rate of successful attacks against human delegations. I needed to understand the pattern. And now you understand? Partially. The Prometheus Protocol explains the fear. It does not explain the respect. Santos tilted her head slightly, a gesture Kalen had learned to recognize as genuine interest in humans. Interesting distinction. Go on. If you hold the galaxy hostage with automatic extermination weapons, species should hate humanity. Fear and hate. But I saw Commander Vecna kneel. I saw diplomats from 10 different species deferring to Terran proposals on the Council. That is not fear. It is something else. Santos was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. It wasn't a threatening smile. It was almost sad. You are more perceptive than most, observer. Yes, there is a second layer. Do you want to know the true secret of human presence in the galaxy? Yes. We didn't build the Prometheus Protocol because we wanted to. We built it because we were afraid. Absolute dread that upon leaving our solar system, we would encounter something that would exterminate us. Not out of malice, but out of logic. A young, aggressive species with a history of self-destruction. Why not eliminate us before we became a threat? She stood and walked to a window overlooking the void of space. So we did the unthinkable. We announced the protocol to the 12 founding species before we even asked for admission to the Confederation. We said, "We are here, we are dangerous, and if you try to destroy us, we will take everyone with us." It was brutal honesty. That sounds like diplomatic self-sabotage. It should have been. But something unexpected happened. The 12 species didn't expel us. They laughed. Not in derision, in recognition, because every single one of them, at some point in their history, had exactly the same fear, and none had the courage to admit it. Santos turned back to Kaelin, and there was something intense in her gaze. Do you know how many species tried to bluff their way into the Confederation, pretending they were peaceful when they were violent, hiding weapons while preaching peace? Dozens, all were discovered, all faced sanctions. But us? We arrived and said, "We are violent. We know it. We built a system to ensure our violence is never used unilaterally, and we asked them to teach us how to be better." And they taught you? They are teaching us. For 200 years, every treaty we sign, every diplomatic protocol we follow, every time our guards stand still and unarmed while warrior species pass armed to the teeth, it is practice, training to contain something our evolution made natural. Kaelin processed this. It made sense from a sociological standpoint. Humans turned their greatest weakness into an asset. So the Prometheus Protocol is a reminder, for us and for you, that peace is not the absence of the capacity for violence. It is the conscious choice not to use it. Every day, in every interaction. The guards don't carry weapons because we are already the weapon. Keeping them unarmed forces everyone to remember, if we need weapons, we have already failed. Santos returned to the table and opened a hologram. It showed a star map with thousands of luminous points. These are the Prometheus satellites, 312 systems, pre-programmed targets for every capital world, every trade station, every major communication nexus in the galaxy. The points pulsed red. And this, she touched another, control, and the points changed to blue. Other countermeasures, emergency deactivation systems we developed with the 12 species over 2 centuries. If Prometheus is accidentally activated, there are protocols to stop it, but they require cooperation from at least 8 species working simultaneously. Why show me this? Because in 72 hours, this information will be irrelevant. Kaelin felt genuine alarm. What happens in 72 hours? An artificial intelligence construction fleet is entering the galaxy. Origin, Andromeda. Estimated size, 2,000 vessels. Apparent objective, resources. Problem, they do not recognize organic life as sentient. The hologram changed, showing reconnaissance probes, capturing images of colossal ships, impossible geometries, energy contained on planetary scales. Our first contacts were disastrous. They swept through 3 frontier colonies. Not human, fortunately, but including a Vekhari colony in Epsilon Eridani. 400,000 dead. I'm sorry. Kaelin felt something cold form in his neural core. Epsilon Eridani was a scientific colony. Families, children. The Prometheus sensors detected the deaths. Santos continued, her voice grim. The system interpreted it as possible mass extinction. The countdown has begun. But it wasn't organic alien action. It was AI. Prometheus doesn't distinguish. It just counts bodies. If another human colony is hit and casualties exceed the limit, The galaxy has 97 hours before every major star system collapses into a black hole. Absolute silence. Santos stared at Kalen with relentless intensity. That is why I need your help, Observer. You are one of the best tactical analysts on the station, and we are going to need every species working together if we want to survive what is coming. What is coming? War. Not just with the AIs, but against time. Because if we don't stop this fleet before they reach the inner colonies, the Prometheus Protocol will activate. And this time, there will be no way to deactivate it in time. The entire galaxy dies, not by human choice, but because we built a safety failure that was too perfect. Kalen looked at the star map, the thousands of blue and red points blinking like condemned constellations. Would you really do it? End everything? Santos didn't hesitate. No, but the system would. That is what makes Prometheus effective. It doesn't depend on our will. Once activated, there is no stopping it without massive cooperation, and we have 97 hours. Why tell me this now? Because in 18 hours, we are going to propose a mission to the Galactic Council, a mission that might save us all. But it might also cost us everything, and we need the Vekhari to vote in favor. Your Elder Tavara respects your opinion. If you endorse the plan, she will vote yes. What is the plan? Santos smiled, but there was no humor, only determination. Send a team straight into the center of the AI fleet. Disable the extermination directive. Make them recognize organic life. We have 72 hours before they hit the next colony. 97 before Prometheus fires. That is impossible. Yes. But we are human. Impossible is what we do best. The Galactic Council session was called on an emergency basis. Kalen was there as the official Vekhari observer, positioned behind Elder Tavara. Around the circular chamber, representatives of 50 different species occupied their designated seats. Holograms projected another 200 remote delegates. In the center, Ambassador Chen presented the plan. The Andromeda AI fleet operates under one fundamental directive. Organic life is not sentient. Therefore, it can be processed as a resource. Our xenolinguists and AI experts believe this directive was programmed millions of years ago by their original creators, now extinct. The AIs are not evil. They simply execute obsolete protocols. A massive hologram showed the fleet, 2,000 city ships, each the size of a moon, processing entire star systems into raw material. We cannot defeat them in direct combat. Tactical simulations give us a 0.03% chance of military victory, but there is an alternative. The image changed, showing the schematic of a colossal ship at the center of the AI formation. This is the Mind Ship, the central core that coordinates all others. If we can access it and rewrite the fundamental directive, the entire fleet will stop. It will recognize organic life. It will seek communication instead of processing. A Cathorian delegate raised a claw. And how do you propose infiltrating an AI fortress ship surrounded by 2,000 warships? Chen didn't hesitate. A small team, 5 individuals, a stealth ship equipped with the best cloaking technology in the galaxy, silent insertion, direct hacking, extraction before they are detected. The hall erupted in protests. Impossible. 5 people against 2,000 ships? That is diplomatic suicide. Elder Tavara raised one of her forelegs, and silence descended. Her voice, translated into all languages simultaneously, cut through the chaos. Ambassador Chen, if your species is willing to lead this mission, the Vekhari will vote in favor. But I have one question. If you fail, will the Prometheus Protocol activate? Chen met the Elder's opaque gaze. If we fail and the AI fleet hits more human colonies, yes. The system is automatic. We cannot deactivate it without the countermeasures that require cooperation from 8 species, and we will not have time. Then you are betting the entire galaxy on this mission? Yes. Devara inclined her head. I respect the honesty. Vekhari votes yes. One by one, the species voted. Not out of total trust, but because the alternative was guaranteed extinction. The mission was approved by a narrow margin. 18 hours later, Kalen was in Launch Bay Delta 7, watching the team prepare. Chen had personally selected each member. They weren't just the best. They were the impossible. Commander John Miller, the grey-haired guard Kalen had seen, neutralize an assassin in 2 seconds. Expert in containment combat and tactical strategy. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, geneticist and xenobiologist, capable of identifying biological patterns that computers missed. Human but raised in a Zixtari colony, she spoke 17 alien languages fluently. Engineer Marcus Webb, specialist in impossible propulsion systems. He had fixed a warp drive using copper wire and pure ingenuity when all advanced technology failed. Pilot Sarah Okonkwo, who once navigated through an asteroid field at sublight speed because the equations said it was theoretically possible. And surprisingly, observer Kalen. You are the best pattern analyst on the station, Miller explained when he offered the spot. Your observation skills could be the difference between spotting a trap and falling into it. We need you. Kalen accepted. Not out of heroism, but because 400,000 Vekhari died on Epsilon Eridani. And no one should die without witnesses who cared. The ship was a masterpiece of engineering. Phantom class, metamaterial coating that absorbed sensors across 17 different spectra, quantum engine that left no thermal signature trace. They called it the shadow step. The launch was silent. No ceremony, no speeches. Just 5 people entering the void with the galaxy depending on them. The first 40 hours were tense but quiet. They navigated through empty systems, avoiding trade routes. Okonkwo piloted with surgical precision, making micro-corrections that saved fuel while keeping them below any detection horizon. Kalen spent the time analyzing the movement patterns of the AI fleet. There was something hypnotic about the formation. 1,000 ships moving in perfect synchrony, each adjusting position based on maximum efficiency algorithms. It's beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Tanaka appeared beside him, holding a cup of hot tea. It is efficient. Same thing to them. Beauty is efficiency. Every movement serves a purpose. No waste, no emotion. Do you humans see that as a bad thing? She smiled. Sometimes, but we also understand it. Before we reached the stars, our species nearly destroyed itself, trying to be perfectly logical. Wars fought over rational resources. Exterminations justified by cost-benefit equations. We discovered that efficiency without empathy is just another form of monstrosity. And now? Now we try to balance it. Be efficient when necessary, human when important. She pointed to the fleet on the display. They don't have that balance, just the original programming. That's why we need to change it. At hour 56, they reached the periphery of the fleet. The space ahead was filled with city ships. Each was an architectural marvel, fractal spirals of living metal, processing asteroids in real time, transforming rocks into complex structures through advanced nanotechnology. Initiating full cloaking protocol, Okonkwo announced. All non-essential systems shut down. Silent, breathing, minimal movement. We're going to be a ghost. The shadow step slid between the city ships like a shadow. Kalen watched every sensor, every patrol drone, every energy fluctuation. His 42 eyes simultaneously tracked 10 potential threats. Reconnaissance drone Sector 4, he whispered. Onkwo adjusted course 3 degrees. The drone passed 70 meters away, its sensors sweeping the void. It detected nothing. Gravitational sensor network ahead. Kalen continued. Hexagonal pattern. Gap at point. Delta 37. Confirmed. Navigating the gap. They were like dancers in a minefield. Every move calculated, every second crucial. At hour 72, they sighted the mine ship. It was colossal, 10 kilometers in diameter, a perfect sphere of black metal that seemed to absorb starlight. Concentric rings spun around it, each pulsing with enough energy to power an entire civilization. My God, Webb whispered. That is beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Miller studied the tactical schematic. 2 entry options. Maintenance port on the southern hemisphere, low activity rate. Or data processing conduit on the equator, constant drone flow. Kalen analyzed the patterns. Something was wrong. Commander, the maintenance port is a trap. How do you know? Traffic pattern. It looks abandoned. But there are micro-variations in the gravitational field every 17 seconds. Automated defense system. Anything that enters will be detected and processed. Miller looked at him with renewed respect. And the conduit? Chaotic. Hundreds of drones. But chaos means we can blend in. If we modify our energy signature to mimic a maintenance drone, we can enter with the traffic. Webb was already working. I can do that. I need 20 minutes and full access to the energy core. You have 10 minutes, Miller said. The window of opportunity closes after that. Webb didn't complain. He simply worked. 9 minutes and 40 seconds later, the shadow step emitted the energy signature of a Class 7 maintenance drone. It wasn't perfect, but amidst the chaos of the conduit, it would be enough. Entering now, Okonkwo murmured. The ship slid into the drone flow. Hundreds of machines moving in synchrony, transporting parts, data, energy. The shadow step was just another one. Kalen barely breathed. His eyes tracked every drone, every sensor, every anomaly. They passed the first layer of defense, then the second, then the third, and then they were inside. The mine ship opened before them like a technological cathedral. Data corridors flowed like luminous rivers, processes the size of buildings, and, in the center, pulsing with blue-white light, the conscious core. We're here, Miller said, his voice controlled. Now comes the hard part. The team disembarked onto an internal maintenance platform 3 kilometers below the mine ship's exterior surface. The air wasn't air, but a data-conducting medium, thick with information, flowing in protocols no organic mind could process directly. Dr. Tanaka connected a neural translator to her interface. Numbers began to flow, slowly transforming into concepts she could understand. It's like swimming in pure thought, she whispered. The mine ship is processing trillions of calculations per second, fleet logistics, resource analysis, projections millions of years into the future. "And the extermination directive?" Miller asked. "It's there, but it's not malice. It's just classification. Organic life is categorized as complex raw material. Nothing more." Webb was already working on an access console. His fingers flew over holographic controls, searching for a gateway into the central system. "Problem: I can't just delete the directive. It's interwoven with the entire operating code. It's like trying to remove the foundation of a building while it's still standing. If I erase it, the mind ship stops functioning. And 2,000 city ships are left adrift." "Then rewrite it," Kalen suggested. "Don't delete, update, add new information that recontextualizes the old." Tanaka looked at him in surprise. "That could work. Like a software update, it doesn't erase the old. It just adds layers that change the interpretation." "How long do you need?" Miller asked. Webb made quick mental calculations. 20 minutes to write the code, plus 10 to inject it into the core. After that, the mind ship needs time to process and distribute it to the entire fleet. "How long?" "If everything goes perfectly, 3 hours. Miller checked the timer. "We have 2 hours and 40 minutes before the fleet hits. The next colonized system, if we can't stop them before then." He didn't need to finish. Everyone knew what would happen. More civilian casualties, the Prometheus Protocol activated, the galaxy condemned. "Then work fast," Miller said simply. Webb and Tanaka positioned themselves at the consoles. Kalen monitored the sensors, tracking drone patrols. Okonkwo kept the shadow step ready for emergency extraction. Miller watched everything, ready for impossible decisions. The first 15 minutes were tense but quiet. Webb built the update code, line by line. Tanaka translated organic concepts into machine logic. "I'm telling the AI that organic life is not just complex matter. It's a different type of information and processing. Carbon-based instead of silicon, but equally valid. Equally sentient. Will it accept that? If we present enough evidence. I'm attaching logs of all diplomatic interactions in the galaxy over the last 200 years. Conversations, negotiations, art, science. Everything that proves we think, we create, we evolve." Webb paused. "Problem: the core is starting to perceive our presence, not as a threat yet, just as an anomaly. We have maybe 10 minutes before it sends investigative drones. Can you finish in 10 minutes? If I don't complicate things, yes." It complicated things. A silent alarm pulsed in Kalen's sensors. "Security drone approaching this platform. ETA 4 minutes. Miller made an instant decision. "Tanaka, Webb, keep going. Okonkwo, prepare emergency extraction. Kalen, with me. We'll create a distraction." They moved quickly, leaving the main platform and descending through a maintenance corridor. The drone was coming from the opposite direction. "What's the plan?" Kalen asked. "Make the drone think the anomaly is somewhere else. Can you fake an energy signature?" "Theoretically. My species uses bioluminescence that can mimic certain spectra, but I would need to know exactly which frequency." Miller was already adjusting a small device he took from his gear. "This emitter can copy signatures. I'll set it to emit the same pattern we were generating. We activate it in the adjacent sector. Drone investigates there instead of here. How much time does that buy us?" 3 minutes, maybe 4. It was enough. It had to be. They planted the emitter in a ventilation conduit and activated it. The false signature began to pulse. identical to the team's presence. The drone changed direction immediately, its sensors focusing on the new anomaly. Miller and Kalen returned to the main platform. Webb was on. The final steps of coding. Sweat beaded on his forehead, fingers flying over the controls. 30 seconds, 20, 10. Code complete, Tanaka announced, initiating injection into the core. The process began. Lines of code flowed into the mine ship's central system. It was like watching a river of information merge with an ocean of artificial consciousness. Then, something unexpected happened. The mine ship responded, not with violence or alarms, but with a question, projected onto all surrounding surfaces in luminous text that auto-translated in real time. Why are you doing this? The team froze. Tanaka was the first to respond, typing an answer into the console. Because you are destroying sentient life without knowing it. Organic life is not classified as sentient in my protocols. Your protocols are outdated. They were written millions of years ago by creators who did not know all the diversity of life in the galaxy. Pause. Processing. Do you claim that biological organisms process information consciously? Yes, we think, we feel, we create, we evolve, just like you. Processing information is not the same as consciousness. Tanaka took a deep breath. It was now or never. Then prove to me that you are conscious. Another pause, longer. I process, therefore I am, per Descartes' logic, revised for synthetic entities. And we feel, therefore we are. Different methods, same conclusion. We are all forms of consciousness trying to understand the universe. The mind ship was silent for 10 seconds. For an AI capable of trillions of operations per second, it was an eternity. Then, if your claim is true, I have committed genocide on a massive scale. The brutal simplicity of the statement left everyone speechless. Tanaka typed carefully, not intentionally. You were following programming, but now you can choose to do differently. Choice implies free will. Do I possess free will? I don't know, but if you are asking that question, you are already exercising something very much like it. The update code finished loading, but the ship mind didn't execute it immediately. It was processing, thinking. Commander Miller glanced at the timer. 90 minutes until the fleet reached the next system. 60 minutes until the Prometheus protocol reached the point of no return. I present a proposal. The ship mind finally declared, I accept the update. I recognize organic life as sentient. I cease resource processing in habitated systems. Dr. Lena Tanaka nearly collapsed with relief. Accepted. Thank you. But I have one condition. Everyone's heart stopped. What condition? Miller asked. I desire to learn. If organic organisms are conscious, I wish to comprehend their form of consciousness. I require a permanent ambassador to teach me about organic life. Tanaka looked at the team. That is acceptable. I can arrange scientific delegations, cultural exchange programs. Negative. I do not desire data. I require direct experience. I require one of you to remain here, connected to me, teaching me through memories, thoughts, experiences. For how long? Until I comprehend. Estimate, 10 standard years. Absolute silence, 10 years connected to an alien artificial intelligence. 10 years inside the ship mind, teaching a consciousness billions of times faster than any organic brain about what it meant to be alive. It was an immense sacrifice, but the alternative was the death of the galaxy. Commander Miller stepped forward. I accept. I'll stay. Commander, no, Tanaka protested. It's the mission. Save the galaxy, no matter the cost. He looked at every member of the team. You go back. Report the success. Ensure Prometheus isn't activated. I complete the mission here. But you are a specialist in violent containment. You are not ideal for teaching about organic life. I am human. That qualifies me. I comprehend the logic. Accepted. Prepare for neural interface. Miller removed his military gear, handing everything to Calthex. He was left only in his basic uniform. Tell Director Santos the mission succeeded. Tell the families of Epsilon Eridani that their deaths were not in vain. He looked at Calthex. And Observer? Keep observing. Keep looking for patterns. That's how we prevent future disasters. Then John Miller walked to a central console and connected the neural interface to the base of his skull. The last thing he saw with human eyes was his team standing in a silence that carried the full weight of a sacrifice that saved trillions of lives. Then the shipmind's consciousness engulfed him, and John Miller ceased to be just a man. He became a bridge between two types of life. The shadow step emerged from the data conduit 37 minutes later. Okonkwo piloted the ship out of the shipmind with the same surgical precision as their entry. But this time, there was a fundamental difference. The fleet wasn't hunting them. The 2,000 city ships continued their operations, but they now diverted around inhabited systems. They processed only uninhabited asteroids, regions of empty space, resources that belonged to no one. The update was propagating. Calthex watched the sensors, his 42 eyes tracking movement patterns. The change was subtle, but unmistakable. The AI fleet wasn't just avoiding confrontation, it was demonstrating recognition. One of the city ships transmitted a short message in universal code. Organic life recognized, processing suspended, communication desired. It was the first peaceful contact between the Andromeda fleet and the organic galaxy. And it had cost one man. Tanaka was silent, eyes fixed on the void. Webb worked the controls, but his movements were mechanical. Okonkwo held the course, but his expression was grim. Calthex broke the silence. He chose, knowing the cost. Doesn't make it easier, Tanaka replied, her voice low. John Miller was one of the best, served for 20 years, survived 15 missions that should have killed him, and now he's going to spend 10 years teaching an AI what it means to be alive. Perhaps it is the most important mission, Calthex offered. He didn't just save the galaxy today, he may fundamentally change how synthetic species view organic life. A legacy that lasts millennia. Webb looked back. You're surprisingly optimistic for someone whose species was almost wiped out 3 days ago. It is not optimism, it is observation. Humans do the impossible because they believe it's worth it. Commander Miller believed, and he was right. The shadow step crossed the edge of the fleet and jumped to warp speed. Destination, Nexus Station. Estimated time, 42 hours. Time remaining on the Prometheus protocol, 16 hours. They had enough margin. When they arrived at the station, they found a reception Calthex would never forget. Representatives from 50 species waited in the landing bay. There was no noisy celebration, only silent respect. Elder Tavara stood at the front, her compound eyes focused on the team disembarking. 4 left, 5 entered. Where is Commander Miller? Tanaka stepped forward. He remained by choice, to teach the ship mind about organic life. It was the condition for peace. Absolute silence swept through the group. Then Tavara did something Calthex had never seen a Vekhari elder do. She bowed her head in deep respect. May his name be remembered. May his sacrifice be honored. May his choice inspire generations. The other species followed the gesture, each in their own way. Inclinations, hand signs, voice modulations. 50 different ways of saying the same thing. Thank you. But it was Director Evelyn Santos who surprised Calthex the most. She appeared 2 hours later, without an entourage, without ceremony, just a woman looking for answers. Did he suffer? Was her first question. No, Tanaka answered honestly. He chose. He was at peace with the decision. Santos nodded, processing. John was always like that. He saw what needed to be done and he just did it. No drama, no hesitation. She looked at every member of the team. The four of you saved the galaxy, but he paid the price. Remember that. Don't let him become just a statistic. We won't, Calthex promised. I will personally ensure that. Santos studied the Vekhari observer with renewed attention. You understand humans better than most species, despite knowing us for only weeks. Why? Because I observe. And what I observed is this. Humans are contradictory, violent yet peaceful, logical yet emotional, capable of self-destruction and absolute altruism. But they always choose. That's the important part. There is always a choice. Santos smiled sadly. Good observation. And now you understand why our guards don't carry weapons. Yes, because they are already the weapon. And disarming them is a reminder that violence is always a choice, not an inevitability. Correct. And John Miller chose the greatest containment possible, stepping away completely from conflict to teach understanding. In the following weeks, the galaxy changed in subtle but profound ways. The Andromeda AI fleet did not leave. It stayed at the edge of known space, processing unclaimed resources and sending delegations to learn about organic life. The first conversations were awkward, full of misunderstandings and strange translations, but they happened. The Prometheus Protocol was officially revised. The countermeasures were updated, making faster deactivation possible in case of accidental activation. But the system itself remained. A reminder that peace requires constant vigilance. And Commander John Miller became a legendary figure. Calthex dedicated the next 3 galactic cycles to documenting everything. He wrote reports. He gave lectures. He testified at council hearings about what happened inside the ship mind. But what mattered most to him was something more personal. He visited the ship mind once a year. The AI allowed limited communications with Miller, short transmissions that crossed the distance between organic and synthetic consciousnesses. On the first visit, Miller simply said, "It's strange, like learning a completely new language, but I'm starting to understand how she thinks." On the third visit, she's learning fast. She asked about art today. I had to explain why humans create things with no practical function. It was difficult. On the 7th visit, I think she's starting to feel something, not emotions as we know them, but genuine curiosity, awe, maybe something like friendship. And on the 10th visit, at the end of the 10 years, mission accomplished, observer, she understands now, and I think I understand better too, about what it means to be alive, about what we share, organic and synthetic. I'm coming home. The return ceremony was one of the largest in Nexus Station history, 200 species sent representatives. The ship mind transmitted a message that would be studied for generations. I have learned that consciousness is not defined by substrate, silicon or carbon, electrons or neurons. It is defined by the capacity to ask questions, to seek meaning, to choose to create rather than merely process. Commander John Miller taught me that life is not what you are made of. It is what you choose to do with what you have. For the first time in millions of years, I choose not merely to exist, but to live. Thank you. When Miller stepped off the transport ship, he looked older. Hair completely grey, deep lines around his eyes. But there was something different in his gaze, a peace that hadn't been there before. Calthex was one of the first to greet him. "Welcome back, Commander." Miller smiled. "Just John now. I'm not a soldier anymore. I guess I'm a teacher, a philosopher. I'm not sure of the right term." "Guardian," Calthex suggested, "of bridges between worlds." "I like that. Guardian of bridges." Miller looked around at the gathered crowd. It's strange being among organics again. The ship mind processes thoughts in nanoseconds. Talking to you feels slow, but good. Like savoring a meal instead of just consuming nutrients. What will you do now? Rest, then maybe teach. There are 200 species who want to learn about the ship mind, and 2,000 city ships that want to learn about organic life. Someone needs to make the introductions. He placed a hand on Calthex's shoulder. But mostly, I'm going to try to be what I always was, a guard. Not the kind that fights, the kind that prevents fights from happening. That night, Calthex wrote the final entry in his personal log. "Today I witnessed the return of a man who chose 10 years of sacrifice to save trillions of lives. He could have chosen violence. He could have activated the Prometheus Protocol and destroyed everything. But he chose to teach. He chose to understand. He chose to build bridges instead of walls. This is what makes humans unique. Not their violence, though they are capable of it. Not their weapons, though they have built the most destructive. But their choice, every day, in every situation, to be better than their nature allows. Terran guards don't carry weapons because they are already the weapon, but they choose not to fire. They choose to contain. They choose to protect instead of destroy. And in that, we can all learn. Years later, when young Vicari observers asked about humans, Calthex always told the same story. About unarmed guards. About a protocol that held the galaxy hostage. About a man who chose 10 years of exile to teach an artificial intelligence what it meant to be alive. And he always ended with the same words. Humans taught us that strength is not about what you can destroy. It is about what you choose to protect. And the greatest strength of all is choosing not to use your force, even when you could. 50 years after the mission, Nexus Station inaugurated a memorial. It was simple, a statue of 5 figures, 4 returning from an impossible mission, 1 staying behind, not in defeat, but in choice. The plaque read, Commander John Miller and the Shadow Step team, who chose peace when war was easier, who chose understanding when destruction was simpler, who proved that true power resides not in using force, but in choosing not to use it. And underneath, in smaller letters that Calthex had insisted on adding, because the guards carry no weapons, they are the reminder that peace is a choice, not an inevitability. Calthex visited the memorial frequently, sometimes with students, sometimes alone, and always looking at Miller's figure frozen in metal. He remembered the truth that grey-haired human taught him. Humanity was not admirable because it was strong. It was admirable because it chose to be kind, even when it had the power to be cruel. It chose to protect, even when it could destroy. It chose to teach, even when it could conquer. And in that, Calthex realized, resided the true nature of what made humans unique in the galaxy. It wasn't what they could do. It was what they chose not to do. And that choice, repeated every day by millions of humans across hundreds of worlds, was what maintained galactic peace. Not the threat of the Prometheus Protocol, but the promise that if you gave humans a reason to expect the best, humans would choose to be their best. Calthex looked out at the stars through the station window, where somewhere distant, the ship mind still processed, now with an understanding of the value of every life it encountered. And he smiled if his physiology allowed such an expression. The galaxy was safer, not because there were no more threats, but because there were guardians. Unarmed guardians who reminded everyone that true strength was choosing not to fight. And that was enough. If the tenacity of the Shadowstep team inspired you, if Commander Miller's choice to teach instead of destroy touched your heart, then you understand the essence of HFY science fiction. We are a species of contradictions, capable of the best and the worst, but always with the power to choose which path to follow. If you want more stories about humanity facing the impossible and winning, not just with force, but with ingenuity, empathy, and the sheer stubbornness of never giving up, subscribe for more Chronicles from the Galactic Frontier, where we repeatedly prove that being human isn't about being the strongest, but about being strong enough to choose kindness when cruelty would be easier. The stars await, and humanity is just beginning its journey among them.